Okay, so we're designing a real life design problem and defining it using Explore Explain. We're at the very end of Explore Explain 1, and then we're going to move on to Explore Explain 2. So now it's talking about how important fire alarms can be, that they need to be not hard to reach, and that they can be turned off, that they can be reliably used, and kind of the trade off of research and testing and why they still kind of have them on ceilings because it could still be important to save lives. So it's important to always define criteria and constraints. Choose whether it's a criteria or a constraint. So, according to government regulation, alarm has to be at least 65 decibels at a distance of 10 feet. It's a constraint because it's telling you between here and here, this is what you can do. Battery compartment needs to be easy to open, criteria. Have a signal for alerting that the battery is low, criteria, that's what you want. It has to weigh less than this, so that has to makes you know it's a constraint. Lithium batteries cannot be used, only 9 volts, so that's a constraint. And design needs to have as few moving parts as possible. That's a criterion, that's what you want. Okay, so you just want to make sure that yours looks like mine. You have constraint, criterion, 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 constraint, criterion. So mostly criterion, just 2 constraints, the first one and the next last one. Okay. Add one other criterion constraint that's needed for a fire alarm design. Okay. So what did they not say? They said how much it should weigh, battery life, how much to open, how loud it has to be, not a lot of parts. Okay. The criteria should also have that the fire alarm can be can tell people when the battery needs to be changed and be changed easily. This is important to make sure it continues working and keeps people safe. Right? It doesn't say about exchanging the batteries, but it's really important that you can exchange them safely because that's the only way that people are going to be able to use this. Otherwise, they won't use it, and the battery will run out. And then if there's a fire, that's a problem because it will not alert you. Okay, we're going to move on to exploration 2, comparing engineering and science practices and how they're related. Science is always asking questions, and engineering is always coming up with solutions. Okay, so when you're building a road, a bridge, a park, the scientist is coming up with all the questions around that, and the engineer is coming up with those solutions and implementing solutions. Okay, decide if this is a scientist or an engineer that's asking these questions. What tectonic process leads to? Okay, definitely a question. Right? What tectonic process leads to the formation of sandstone? What is the most effective glass thickness? So when you're asking about thickness, that's like you're creating a solution for glass being thick. So that's engineer question. Fuel to air ratio in a car engine that produces the most power. Engineer because you're creating a solution. Not just asking a question for information, you're asking a question for a solution. What type of drill is the best using for sand mining? What is the minimum diameter of wire needed for a transmission line? So that could be a scientist. And then because of the 150,000 volt transmission line, it's a question asking for a solution that you have. So that would be an engineer on the last one. So scientist, engineer, 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 engineer. Very focused on engineer for that one. How to ask questions and define problems. Engineers are always defining a problem because they're looking for a solution. This is talking about strength and how much you can hang something before it breaks. So if you want this to be something that someone uses, how much can they hang onto it before it will break? This is bubble packaging. So how much bubble packaging can be stretched before it will break? They use a model, so that was the model we were just looking at, to really test it and say, I think it can carry 20 pounds, but let's actually put 20 pounds on this and see if it can carry it. So you have to ask these questions. You have to think about the chemical structure of the material. You have to think about how long you want it to be, how strong you want it to be before you test it. You can see it testing the material. It's ripping and ripping and ripping. And this is going to be important to know. Do you need a thicker material? Is this material enough? Are you going to have that much pressure pulling or not? Or what you need it for? And then it breaks right here. So they would know that that's as much of pressure as a material can take. Okay, it gives a lot of answers when you take this data and you analyze it. They even graph it. So here's a stress and strain graph. It's talking about that plastic being stretched out. So here it is, it's stretching out, it's doing a great job. It starts to slow down. If you guys are watching the video, it's slowly breaking apart, but you can still stretch it, and then it breaks, right? So what would happen if 2,000 grams were applied and then removed? So here's the 2,000 grams. So I'm going to take it over here. It's at about 30 centimeters. So I would say at 2,000, it's going to stretch 30 centimeters. The material will stretch for 30 centimeters, and when removed, it would not break. It's that strong, right? It can support 2,000 grams because the failure point is not until almost 3,000 grams. Okay, then you have to explain that like we just did, and then we have arguments that kind of show this is what would happen here, this would happen there. Sometimes you have so much data you can prove multiple points. So this is just outlining design steps and different ideas you can take for construction. So this is talking about designing experiment where there's 3 types of aggregate. Like, which one do you think you should use for concrete? Should you use gravel? Should you use sand? Or should you use river sand? So what experiment would you do to see which one's the best, right? Concrete is used for bridges and buildings. That means it has to hold a lot of weight. An experiment could be using the material and having a car drive over it. The material that stays in place and doesn't hurt the car will be the material that is best to use for the concrete. Right? I could do that experiment. You get a bunch of sand, person drives over it. Is their car messed up? Does the sand move and shake and kind of make the car sink, or what exactly happens, right? So that was Explore, Explain 2. We can do Taking It Further. Really enjoy getting to choose one of the paths. I'm going to choose the solutions for organ and tissue transplants. Just I'm interested in that. Organs are made up of tissues, so they're showing all the different parts of the human body. Great, so you can see all the different lungs and liver and kidneys, talking about organs and how people need them. These are the different tissues that people can actually share or donate to someone else. So your eyes, your blood and bone marrow, skin, liver, heart and heart valves, And your intestines. Wow. Looking back here, bones, tendons. There's so much in the human body. Lungs, pancreas, kidney, and any of your veins, the blue and the red right there. So what is the challenge of organ donation? There's a shortage of the actual organs and tissues. So there's lists of people that are waiting for these organs, okay? It's also really hard to match a donor and a recipient to just show that, hey, that organ that was in that other person will match and work in another person's body, because there's a lot of different pieces that could work or not work, okay? Choose an organ that can be donated and used to help improve someone's life. Well, I think the heart is kind of a big one. So heart and heart valves. A heart and heart valve can save someone's life, because if the heart valve is clogged, they will die. If they get a new heart, it can help a person to live a much longer life, because the blood can circulate again all over the body. The heart is really important for circulating the blood, so I wanted to add that. So research an engineering solution that is developed to get the organ or tissue from the donor to the patient. Okay, so let's research. How does the technology work to get an organ from the donor to the transplant? You guys are hopefully typing that in your own search engine. So this is going to talk a little bit more about that. So this is a surgical center. The way that they transmit is from something called Donor Connect. It's called a hypothermic machine perfusion. So let's go put that. The hypothermic machine perfusion takes from the organs and the donator and gives to the person in need. Right, and then it's just a cold solution that has a pump as well. So it keeps the organ cold and working because it uses a pump to keep it active. This way the organ stays alive and strong while it is being transported. Okay, so we talked about how it's transported and what the process looks like and how they maintain it, because they keep it cool. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's better than even an ice fill cooler, because they kind of created their own ice fill with a pump. Okay, that's going to be everything. We're going to create a new video to do our lesson self-check. Because we did engineering solutions for organs and transplants, we don't need to do careers in engineering or the earliest examples of technology.